In this lecture, I will show you how you can share your Postman collection by using Git. In this lecture, I already assume that you know how to use Git and that you are familiar with the terminology used. If this is not the case, I will link you some tutorials on how to get started with Git, and I strongly suggest that you first look at those tutorials and then come back to this video later. Now, for this to work, we first need a Git repository. I'm here at github.com and I already prepared a repository, a private repository that I will create and use for this case. But you can use any service that you want. You may already have in your company or where you're working a Git repository server that you can use for such cases. So it really doesn't matter where you host this. I just use GitHub because it's free and easy to use, but you're totally free to use it with any service that you like. And the demonstration and how things work are pretty similar, so there's nothing to worry about. Now I will go ahead and create this repository. Now once this has been created, all I have to do is to go to clone and download, and I have to get the address where this is located. So I can easily copy this, and I'm gonna use SourceTree to manage this repository, but you can use the CLI or any other tools that you like. So I'm gonna clone from URL. I'm gonna paste here the address. I will leave the destination where it's proposing to save it, and I will enter my credentials in order to be able to clone this private repository. Now, once I have entered the proper credentials, I will click on clone, and this will only take a few seconds to clone. Now let's jump to Postman. And I already prepared a small collection here in Postman. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just one request and there's one test inside. So very, very minimal, but the same principle applies to all of them. So what I will do with this collection is I will click these three dots here in the menu, and I will click the export option from the context menu that appeared here. And I will always export the collection with the latest version that is being recommended. Now, all I have to do is to locate the folder that we have checked out previously. So in this case, it's postman-collection-git, that's something. And I'll save my collection here. So I can give whatever name I like. By default, Postman will have this name here, but you can name it as you like. So now I will click save, and this collection has been successfully exported. Now, if I jump back to SourceTree, I will see that I have this file here, and it's detecting that this file has not been committed. This is a file that is in a JSON format, and this is something that Postman can understand. So in this case, all I have to do is to commit this file and say first version of the collection or something like that. And I have the option, of course, to immediately push those changes to the origin master, so to the server that's hosting Git in this case. So I'm committing and pushing immediately. So let's hit the commit button. I will add this file. And now it has been committed. And I can easily check it by going back to GitHub, hitting the refresh button, and I should see a new file inside my repository. Now, anybody that wants to check this out and to import this collection locally, all they have to do is to clone this repository, manually import the file, and make changes or something like that to it. Now, let's imagine that somebody else made a change to this file, and I will simulate it by directly changing it inside GitHub. You will be able to easily make a change here. So you will see here that the name of a request is request 1. And if I change this here, I will make a change to the request, to the collection in Postman. So let's call this my first request. Other change. or some other minor change. And somebody has made this change here, doesn't really matter who, but we now have a change in our repository, but our local repository and our Postman collection is out of sync with the latest information that we have there. Now, it doesn't matter who has to do it. Any user that now wants to have the latest version or to make changes to this collection should do the following steps. And the first step would be to pull the latest changes from the repository. So I will do that by using SourceTree. So I will pull the latest changes. And now if I look at the history, I will see that I have two different commits that happened in this collection. So this was the first version that the collection was added. And this is just a minor change that we did by using the GitHub interface, just to show that we now have a different version. Now, if I go back to Postman, I will still see that my request is still called request1. And we now pulled these changes and still don't have the latest version here in Postman. So what we need to do is to hit this import button, and we're going to import a file. And the file that we're importing is exactly this file from the Git repository. So my collection, Postman collection, and so on. So I'm going to import this. I'm going to be warned that this already exists. And we don't want to have a lot of copies. So I'm going to simply click on replace. And it's going to replace that collection. Any tabs that I have opened will be marked as deleted. You can safely close them. And now you will see you have the latest version with my first request as a title. And now you can start making other changes. And as soon as you make another change, you will be able to go to the same process again. So you will export the collection as a file, you will commit it, you will have to push it, and everybody else will have to pull these changes and manually import them again. So this is how you can save your collection to a Git repository when using Postman. And this can be later very useful, especially if you want to do continuous integration in your CI server. You can just reference the repository where you have your collection. And every time you push a change there, the CI server will be able to fetch the latest version and to run any collections that you have against the version that you really want. And at least at that level, you won't have to do any other manual steps to get it working. So that's about it. This is how you can use Git with your Postman collections.